everybody, and welcome to another Tuesday night in the spotlight. Tonight, I have joining me Christine Sutherland from the Treehouse Holistic Collective, who is joining us to talk to us about unconditional trust. The founder of the Treehouse Holistic Collective, Christine is a spirit coach, an energy healer. She guides her clients to build unconditional trust, both within themselves and on the path that they are walking, by using intuitive techniques and spiritual practices such as guided meditation, breath work, tarot, inner child work, and more. Christine has created a safe and inclusive place for those who are ready to chase their dreams. She will challenge the limitations you have unknowingly put on yourself, guiding you towards building a deep, long-lasting relationship with self and spirit, one you can rely on for many years to come. If anyone's wanting to connect with Christine, she's under Treehouse Holistic on both Instagram and Facebook. So thank you so much for joining us here tonight, Christine.
Thank you for having me. Gosh, that sounds pretty good. I see it on paper, yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit more, like, what is unconditional trust?
Yeah, unconditional trust is a space from which you can tap into and live your life day to day. So it is a long journey for many of us, but once you reach the space of unconditional trust, you find yourself just feeling fully trustful in yourself, in your abilities, in your choices, and in your path in life. And once you get to that space in life, you don't find yourself questioning your choices. You're no longer worrying about the future or feeling regret about the past, because you're in the space of trust. You know yourself, you know your abilities, and you know your worth. And then you can just move forward down your path from that space. And it is so empowering and so freeing.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. So I assume when people come to you, they're not just filled with unconditional trust. So what does that journey into unconditional trust look like?
Well, it is a very individual and personal journey. But for many folks, it takes time. I find a lot of people come to me when they're in a space like in the dark night of the soul, which for folks who don't know what that is, it's basically when a big event happens in your life and your world comes crashing down and you feel like you've exhausted all of your other avenues. You don't know where else to turn. And that's when people tend to turn to spirit and to meditation and to spiritual guidance and God or Great Mother, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of clients I do get come to me in that space, and we can't just jump from there to unconditional trust. So the base is we have to build a foundation of getting to know self and getting to know spirit. So what I do is I essentially help people to build this relationship with themselves and build this foundation with themselves by connecting to spirit. Because
beautiful.
Spirit is that part inside of us that is never touched, right? No matter what we go through in life, no matter what doubts we have, no matter what traumas we have, spirit is that part inside of us that is never burdened by the world. Spirit knows that path. Spirit knows our true purpose. And once we can tap into that, then our possibilities are endless, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's something that most people actually forget somewhere along the line, because when I look at like little children, it's like they just know. Do you know what I mean? They're like so in tune with their purpose. They're so in tune with everything that they're like, I want to dance right now. I want to paint right now. This is just who I am. And then at somewhere along the way, we kind of disconnect from that inner knowing, or maybe we just stop trusting what that inner knowing is.
Yeah, I think in one way we are conditioned to question that inner knowing, right? With all the rules that we're placed on and all of, we grow up and we want to be, we become preteens and we want to fit in, right? So, getting up and dancing in the middle of recess is no longer cool anymore. So we start to fight those urges that we have. And that's our inner child, right? Telling us what it needs in that time. And over time, the world kind of comes in, society kind of comes in, and we lose that connection with self. So a big part of the work that I do with my clients is to meet the inner child. Let's meet your inner child again. Let's reconnect. Let's see what inner child needs. And I feel like by starting in that space, by starting back in the childhood, not only meeting your inner child and seeing what the needs are there, but also, if there's any traumas that happened in that place, that's where you can begin to build your foundation. And I've had clients who have met their inner child, in parks, on a beach, whatever their favorite space was when they were a child. And the connection, the reunion is just so beautiful. Like, people come out of these guided meditations with tears in their eyes, just like not realizing that is the deep emotional healing that they needed, or the comfort that they needed. I have clients who now, use stuffed animals when they're sleeping, or who make time to finger paint because it just feeds them on a level that they didn't even know that they needed. And building that foundation is really key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So because with that, you're building this level of trust from this inner child point of view. Do you find that, is there points of resistance that come up for people as they're starting to work with the inner child? Is because to my own inner knowing, it feels like it's stages of, like we kind of break through this little bit of healing here, and then it's trust at this point forward, and then you kind of reach another block, and then it's okay, trust from this point forward. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Yeah. You can't just like meet your inner child and all of a sudden start trusting in everything that you do. Obviously, right? It's not that simple. But I find that it definitely does come in stages, and the inner child stage for many people tends to be one of the easiest ones. Unless there was severe trauma within the childhood, going back to meet your inner child is quite a happy experience and quite an easy, free-flowing one. It's as we move forward in life and go and start revisiting other parts of life that things get trickier and people start to question the choices they made, or the abilities that they have or had. So definitely the trust does come in stages, but I find that first things first, you have to decide, I'm going all in. I'm going to do this spirit work, right? You have to be all in or it's not going to work. Yeah. And then after that, it's the inner child. And then you do kind of start with the building blocks there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, when you're working with people and kind of discovering their inner child, is there like an age point that they tend to go back to, or does it vary for everybody?
It tends to vary. So I'm a clairsentient, which means that, I kind of have this, we all have a third eye, but I can see very clearly. I can see and pick up on emotions and stuff. So I tend to see children between the ages of 4 and 7 tends to be the sweet spot there. It's rare that you get someone who's old, who goes back to a toddler stage or older than 7. Because I feel like that's such a crucial time in life. We're starting to build our freedom. We're going to school. We're getting away from our parents, and we get that first true sense of independence which is where we first start making our choices, right? And that's for a lot of people where regret starts to come in, and where all of those nasty emotions start to come in. So probably between 4 and 7, I'd say is the average.
Awesome. And the only reason I asked that is that there was another woman that was on as a speaker a few months ago, and we were talking of like this break that happens for a lot of children at the age of 8. And that's where this ego self starts to come in, that's like all full of self-doubt and all of these limitations and stuff. So I was like, I wonder if there's a correlation between that break off with the inner child and then the take-in of that 8-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, like, there could be a link there. I find when my clients first meet their inner child, the inner child is just so excited to see them, and it's either wanting love and comfort or playtime. Yeah. So it's not even like, inner child comes in and says, I regret this decision I made on the playground, or I wish mom had given me more of this. It's more so like, I'm so excited to see you, give me a hug, and then we'll play in the sand, yeah. And it's like, you have to build that first connection. You have to give that first hug. You have to sit and play in the sand in your meditation before you can start asking those questions from your inner child. You have to rebuild the connection. They're a child and they know you, but they don't really know you. They haven't seen you in a long time, right? So it's going to take some time.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And do you find that a lot of people are very encouraged by the art of playing again?
Yeah, it's, I find it's funny. I find women, yes. So, I mean, I don't want to do too much gender stereotyping. I don't want to box this in too much, but from the experiences I've had, I find that, female clients are so willing to, like, yes, I'm going to do some scrapbooking on the weekend, or I'm going to pull out my old teddy bear, or I'm going to finger paint with my daughter. Whereas I find with some of the male clients I've had, they're a little more hesitant to kind of let loose in that way. They're a little more rigid, and their sense of play is different. They're not just going to go and roughhouse their brother, who's now a 45-year-old lawyer in Toronto, so what they did as a child is a little different. So I find that it is a little tricky, and trying to keep it not so gendered, but that tends to be the case with that. For the most part, people are excited. But there is that hesitant, I get those people who are hesitant, who are rigid, who are too cool for school and don't want to, tap into that. And that takes a little more time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's actually a very interesting point that you bring up about the difference between men and women, as much as we don't want to kind of gender stereotype or anything, but it men have been very much taught like it's time to grow up, it's time to be a man, it's time to do X, Y, and Z in order to follow this specific path. So to me, it makes sense that that sense of play would actually be very separated for them.
Definitely. And I think that unfortunately, with the way that we raise our boys compared to how we raise our girls, is girls are told to grow up at a much earlier age. So girls get a sense of responsibility while they still have their sense of play. So it's easier for us to bring that into adulthood, whereas boys get to play, 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 and then all of a sudden it's time to grow up.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've noticed that a lot where, with little girls and that the responsibility we put on them compared to the responsibility we put on boys. And this is generally speaking. I know every household is different, but I feel that women have been balancing responsibility and play a lot longer than a lot of men have been.
Interesting. Very interesting. Things that make my mind go,
Yeah, just that social conditioning, that we get from society is definitely something that I bring into play with my clients and keep in mind, because it's important. I find it's important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this first step is really about building trust. And then how do you get them to incorporate that trust as they start this new journey of having the inner child that's there and playing with them and stuff? And then what about like life things that don't involve play? So like when it comes to work or relationships and that sort of thing, how do you have them incorporate the inner child with that?
So inner child is more so about just like the first connection with spirit and about getting out of your body and into a movement that feels good and into play and into adventure. When it comes to kind of starting to incorporate trust in day-to-day activities as an adult, I tend to bring in spirit guides and higher self. So we move a little bit away from inner child. I bring inner child in for play and then for emotions. When there's a difficult emotion that's arisen, we'll bring in inner child. But then when it's time to start incorporating some of the stuff into day-to-day life, then we'll call on ancestors, we'll call on spirit guides, we'll call on higher self and see who comes through. And then I will introduce the client to that person in a guided meditation or to that animal or whatever it may be. And then they can call on that guide in times of need in their day-to-day life.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And do you find after they've worked with the inner child and built that trust, that stepping into the trust with a spirit guide, an ancestor, an animal spirit, whatever that might be, is easier for them to trust that? Because when I think of children, they believe in like everything, so does that help with the connection?
Yes. I mean, I do find that the clients that I get like this, I understand that the work that I do can seem abstract to a lot of people. So the clients that I do, yeah, I know, you get it. But the clients that I do get already have quite an open mind. Some are more skeptical than others, but they definitely are open and trusting to what I have to offer and to meeting their guides and stuff. So inner child is a great place to start because I find it's the easiest for people to connect to. Right? Like there's just those senses of comfort and of play and of adventure and security that we carry on throughout our entire lives from that built in our childhood, right? So once you've made that connection with your inner child, I find it's then easier to flow into meeting maybe a more abstract guide, someone you've never heard of before, someone you've never met, someone who's always been there. But once you've connected to inner child, then you're like, okay, I see this, I feel this, this is real. What's next? And then it does help the transition go a little smoother.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then moving forward with people and helping them to kind of build this trust and stuff, what would you say are kind of the normal blocks, I guess, for people to run into, or for people to even kind of watch out for that, oh, this is a normal reaction to this kind of thing?
I think one of the most important things that we do in session is to go in and learn what your blocks are and what your conditionings are. What have you been conditioned to believe, and how much of that is actually your thoughts and how much of that are thoughts coming from the outside, right? So we'll go in with higher self and we'll say, okay, here, give me like 5 values that you have, 5 core values that you believe to be true, that you carry day to day. And we'll go through them one by one and say, all right, is this yours? Or did your mother actually teach you this? Or did society actually teach you this? Or did an old boyfriend teach you this, right? And so by learning those blocks, or by learning those core values, and we can kind of place, okay, this one doesn't fit, this one does, I'll keep this one. And then we can kind of reconstruct those values. And from there, once we have the values, the core values that you want to live your life around, that you can use as your measuring stick going forward, we go to blocks. What blocks do you have? So I worked with a coach last year around my emotional relationship with money. And I had no idea. I was living in this poverty mindset. I had this glass roof that was low on my head about my limitations with money, how much I could make monthly, how much I was worth, so on and so forth. Yep. Okay, so for example, I was in this women's group doing this work, and the coach said, all right, I want everybody to write down, what is your dream number? How much would you want to be making monthly to survive? Okay, like not even to survive, to thrive, sorry. So I write down $3,000, okay? And I think I was like second last to go, and the first woman goes and she goes, I want to make $20,000 a month. And I was like, who do you think you are? Like $20,000 a month? Like, that's not, who are you? Are you famous? Are you, like Steve Jobs? Like, who do you think you are? Right. And it was just so foreign to me that somebody could even think that that number was possible for them to make through their business. Right. So once we can go in and learn what our blocks are and where they come from, we can start smashing through them.
Yeah.
So I have a saying on my website when you first go on my website, and it goes, once you break through the brick wall that tells you who you are supposed to be, only then are you free to be that which you are.
Beautiful.
Right? Yes. So once we do the core values, we start to learn the blocks and learn, I learned I had this block with emotional relationship with money. Okay, where did that come from? Right? And then we'll do some inner work, some trauma work on where that came from, and getting to the root. Okay. I don't want to know just what block you have. I want to know where it comes from so we can pull that root out and throw it away because it is not serving you.
Yes.
So the next step after the inner child and meeting the guides would be to call in your guides and then start learning what blocks you have. What is blocking you from trusting in your choices and trusting in yourself?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. And it's amazing how our judgments on what other people are doing are actually revealing to us where our own blocks are. There was a course I took quite a few years ago called the 4 T's of Prosperity. And in it, we had to choose something that we would spend $500 on. And the lady that was teaching the course, she had said she would spend $500 on a pair of shoes. And I was like, are you kidding me? On a pair of shoes? And, kind of thing. And she's a minister. So I'm like, judgy.
Yep.
And then it got to my turn and I was like, I would pay $500 for a course. And she said, I would never invest in another dollar in another course. And I was like, oh, and the whole point was that it's not ever actually the number that we associate with it. It's how much value we put on the thing that we're purchasing. And that has been a huge for me, because I never say anymore, I can't afford that. I don't put value on that because that's really what that thing is teaching me. If I go, if that's way too expensive, I actually don't value that enough.
Yeah.
So I put the money there. Huge realization.
Yeah, but that's beautiful.
When the judgy part comes up, it's usually saying to us, like, what is your belief around this? Or what is the process that you've been taught is the normal here?
And that's where you really have to be conscious of your thoughts. Okay, here's my belief around buying a $500 pair of shoes. Do I actually feel okay with buying this $500 pair of shoes? And my dad would actually say that I'm stupid for buying it. Like, where's this thought coming from? And really tracing back. And it sounds like exhausting work. Like, it sounds like I can't monitor all my thoughts like that. But once you start, it just becomes this natural process. It's neat how it unfolds.
Yeah, because you almost become observant of the thought of, oh, isn't that interesting that I would have a thought about this?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, John and I call it the Great Unlearning. That's what 2020 was all about for us. It's like unlearning everything, and not even everything, because we still are consciously aware of some of these old thought patterns and stuff that are coming up. But there's been a lot of unlearning of what we thought was real, what we
Mm,
believed to be real, what we were just unconsciously doing and then not even realizing until it gets highlighted for us. So
yeah. Yeah, you guys and the rest of the world, it seems like
yeah,
2020 was a year of reflection, and people were stuck indoors. They had to get comfortable with themselves, and they did not like it. So many people were not into that. It was an interesting year for sure, but the great unlearning, I like that.
yeah, and it was good. It was absolutely 100% good. But it's interesting how even these smallest things that our parents do or our teachers say, or and really anyone who's older than us when we're young children, how much we actually absorb, and we are not even realizing, oh, this is coming from this thing over here, or this is coming from this statement that was once made or whatever. So to become aware of it is really
Mhm.
a beautiful process to go through.
Yeah, and I find the hardest thing with that is to become aware of it and not judge yourself for it.
Yes.
Right? So like become aware of it and see it for what it is, but like don't allow yourself to go down the rabbit hole of like judging yourself for it, and recognizing that if this thought process is still present in your life and you're having trouble letting go, then it's still serving you. Like don't force yourself to let go of anything that feels really, really difficult. Well, no, that's not true. There's sometimes we have to let go of things that feel difficult, but just not judging yourself and recognizing that you're in that space for a reason, and then kind of following where that goes, right?
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Because I think sometimes we do push way too
Hmm.
much to just let go, let go, let go, let
Yeah.
go.
Mm-mm. I'm not about that. I am not about just like constantly releasing. Like there are things that we need to hold on to for a reason. And like I've held on to things too long and I've let go of things too soon, right? So it's just about staying present with the process and not being too hard on yourself, not judging yourself too harshly for anything, because we're all just living life. This is it. This is part of it, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And do you have any tips to help people not judge themselves on what they may still be kind of holding on to or maybe stuck in when it comes to becoming aware?
That's a tough one. I find that it can be really overwhelming once you start this process of self-trust and of becoming aware of your patterns and your unconscious thoughts. And step one would probably just be to recognize that the path isn't going to be easy, and that you have the ability to step away from it anytime you need. It is okay to turn off sometimes. It is okay to, turn on TV or take a bath or go for a walk, whatever your process may be. If something comes up and it's feeling extremely overwhelming, I'm not going to push you to dive into that overwhelming feeling, especially if this is a new process to you. So, in terms of, trying to not judge, just remember that you're human. Remember that this is a new process and that there is no rush. Okay. You can't rush your healing. Trevor Hall has a song titled "You Can't Rush Your Healing." And it's true. So there is no rush. If things feel overwhelming, just step away from for a minute. If you find yourself being harsh with yourself, actually, okay, who did I learn this from? I think it was from my business coach last year as well. She talks about when those negative thoughts come in and when the judgments come in, and giving those thoughts a name. Okay. So call them, Alicia or Karen or whatever you may be. And you say, okay, you know what, Alicia, like I hear you and I'm sick of your bullshit and I need you to go away for a bit. So when those negative self-talks and judgments come in, give them a name and say it out loud. It can be quite powerful to just kind of go, like, okay, done with you, Alicia, go away. I'll see you in a bit. That's my tip.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
mine is actually Kevin. That's
Good. Okay, good.
yeah.
Good.
So I totally love that because it is so helpful to just be able to name it as something outside of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
not something that you need to really take that opinion on of and go,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is now who I am.
Yeah.
I must be all of these negative thoughts because we never are. You
No,
know?
and that's the thing to remember. Spirit does not judge. Spirit does not hold negative thoughts. So all negative thoughts you hold on yourself, all judgments you hold on yourself, you have been learned thoughts, have been ego taking in things, right? And ego has a place. Ego is self-preservation. If someone tells you that they've totally killed their ego, For me personally, I don't trust it. I know that ego has a place, but spirit never judges. So it's important to remember that whatever negative self-talk you have or whatever judgments you hold on yourself are probably coming from something outside of you. And it could go way, 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 way back. But chances are, like, that's not spirit. And at the end of the day, we're all just spirit. That is the most pure part inside of us. And spirit would never talk to us like that. That's not how it goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just going back to the no ego thing. I agree with you on that. We all have ego.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how spiritually enlightened you become, you're always going to have an ego. As long as you are human, as long as you're here, you're going to have an ego.
As long as you're in a human experience. And I was in school for a spiritual directorship program. And one of the teachers taught us was that, like, ego has a purpose. Like, in this spiritual world, in the spiritual community, we're taught that ego is bad and to kill ego and to not let ego rule. But ego is the part of you that has self-preservation. Ego is the part of you that keeps you safe in social situations and that keeps you from embarrassing yourself and feeling regret or so on and so forth. Like, ego has purpose. And if you can kind of befriend your ego instead of push it away, you can learn not how to control ego, but how to coexist with ego and not let ego control you, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was actually a huge shame of mine when I first started doing the work that I'm doing, because anytime I would go to see a reader, I was told that I had too much ego. And I had to drop the ego. And I was like, I don't know how, I could not figure out how to get rid of the ego. And then something shifted and it was like, oh, this isn't something to get rid of. This is actually a deeper connection to myself. Once I allow myself to really embrace the ego, it's a beautiful relationship. It's not something to be like pushed away, you know? And it would get stronger. The more you push it away, the stronger it starts to get, because you're rejecting this part of yourself.
Yeah, until it comes banging on the door being like, hey, you, let me in. Yeah, it's not good.
Exactly.
Don't ignore your ego, people. Do not ignore your ego. Befriend it.
Yeah, exactly. Which to me, it actually goes back to that inner child, because that self-preservation comes from that inner child who was feeling unsafe or unheard or whatever may have happened. And that's what makes the ego kind of go, whoa, we don't want that again, you know?
Exactly.
So, because I know you do energy healing as well as like tarot readings and you spiritual coaching and like all of this. So does a person have to step in and kind of go, okay, so this is specifically what I want? Or are you connecting with them and going, you know, this is what would best serve you?
Yeah. So if somebody is curious about working with me, curious about getting involved in the Treehouse, I offer free 15-minute consultations. So I have some people who head to my website, read through the things and say, this is what I want. I want spirit coaching, or I want energy healing. I want a tarot reading. And that's great. But if you find yourself uncertain of which avenue to take, we'll just book a free 15-minute video consultation that looks kind of just like this. And we'll just sit down and I'll get a better sense of, you know, what it is they're looking for. And they'll get a better sense of what it is that I offer. And we can kind of go from there. I find that the tarot readings and the energy healing tend to be a little more focalized, whereas the spirit coaching, I can do tarot readings in spirit coaching. I can do energy healing in spirit coaching. We can do inner child work in spirit coaching. So spirit coaching is kind of all encompassing, but it is also a bit of a longer term commitment. You know, it's not something that you tend to just book one session of and that's it. You know, there is an intake form and things like that. So if someone is interested, but not sure where to start, reach out to me. You know, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, website, all sorts of places, and we can just sit down and chat and then see if it's a good fit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Tammy Lynn is saying, and I have to click on her comment because it's quite long. Oh, no, it wasn't. Okay, so Facebook made it look like it was quite long. It says, we are conditioned to look through certain lenses. As we grow and the more life experience we have, we start to see outside the box. Psychology and human growth and development has opened my eyes to so much more about myself. I could talk about this for hours. So I guess she's just liking what it is that we're saying right now.
Yes.
So, and just kind of going along with her comment there about like these conditionings and everything that we grow up with. What is my question? how would you, I've totally lost the train of question here. Apparently I'm not supposed to ask it. My apologies.
That's okay.
Um, yeah, okay. So yeah, just going, I guess, along the lines of the conditionings, and because I do believe they also serve a purpose for us to act and behave in certain ways. At what point, and perhaps this goes along with the whole idea with the ego of serving the purpose, at what point do you think people should be, I guess, more aware of what those conditionings are? And I know you said about, is it still serving you? So at what point is it time to go, okay, this condition is not, or this conditioning is not serving me any longer?
I think when it is keeping you from living in alignment with your highest good, right? When it's keeping you from living in alignment with with yourself and your truth. So we, you know, these conditionings that we have tend to be, you know, if we're going to speak in psychological terms, we develop subpersonalities, right?
Yeah.
And there are these subpersonalities that help us cope with life, right? So we have spirit at the center. It's kind of like this circle that grows. So we have spirit at the center, and then we have inner child, and then there's our subpersonalities, right? So there's like the addict and the poet and the badass and the, you know, there's so many different subpersonalities. So I think that it's really easy for us, especially if we're in a space of trauma or ignoring our trauma, in a space of needing healing, and we're ignoring it, to kind of delve into one of these subpersonalities and use it as our identity. Right. So you'll see someone who is clearly hurting, and, you know, I mean, the most obvious example is the addict, right?
Yeah.
You know, addiction is just a clear sign for, you know, help. Someone needs help. But there's even, you know, there's the subpersonality of, say, like the gamer. And I guess that is another addiction at its core, but of someone who just like spends all of their time playing video games, and they love video games and they're so excited about video games, but they're ignoring all those their other duties, right? They're not caring for themselves properly, and they're not facing their healing. They're not eating properly. They're not, you know, they've retracted from friends and family. So I think that if somebody takes one of their subpersonalities and makes it their entire identity, it's a clear red flag that there's something else going on there, right? They're ignoring the other 95% of themselves for a reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we can see that with like the mother who becomes only the mother, or the healer who they all do all of the time is the healer, you know. There's so many different aspects where people can, and I've done it myself, where you throw yourself 100% into it because you think that's the best thing to do, but then you end up losing all of these other parts of yourself as well.
Yeah. And I think that that has a bit of a duality, because, you know, somebody could be throwing themselves into the role of the mother or the healer because, you know, they're getting lost in themselves and they're getting so caught up in this. But also, so often, especially with the mother role, society tells that of us. You know, if you're going to be a mother, be a fucking mother. Like, that's you. That's who you are. You're not allowed to have anything else. You know, or if you're going to be a healer, be a healer. Like, you know, don't drink wine and don't eat junk food or whatever it may be. Like, we're told that if we're going to like identify as this role, that's the only role we can be. So it can become tricky to kind of learn why you're jumping into that subpersonality. Is it like, again, is it coming from inside you, or is it coming from, you know, a conditioned thought being told to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And with the world that we're in right now, I feel like there's all of these opinions that are constantly coming at people, whether it's on social media, whether it's from the TV programs, whether it's from conversations with people or the news or whatever it might be. And so I found in my own practice and even in my own life, there's times where it's like, I don't even know what is true anymore. Do you know what I mean? I don't know actually what the right answer is at this point in time, because I've heard 10 different points of view on it and they all seem about right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that is when unconditional trust comes into play, right? If you have done your work, if you spend time with spirit, you will be able to access, to sit down and say, here's what I'm feeling. I don't know what to believe. And spirit might not give you a clear cut answer. Spirit might be like, it's okay not to know what to believe right now. But spirit will give you an answer of some kind, and you have to trust in that answer. Right? You just have to say, okay, it might be hard, but you just have to say, okay, I'm going to trust in this and I'm going to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when the GPS is like, just drive straight, and you're like, I'm pretty sure I need to be
Yeah.
turning here or up here or whatever. And GPS is like, just keep driving straight or whatever. And you
Yes.
just got to trust it, you know?
That's a good analogy. Unconditional trust is just like trusting in your internal GPS, right? Your intuition is your GPS, trust it, right? And so many of us question our intuition. And, I have gotten to a space with my unconditional trust where I just trust my intuition. Even if I'm like, I don't know, okay, click yes, like I have no idea. Sometimes you just have to jump and trust, and sometimes you fall and sometimes you don't, but it's exactly what is supposed to happen, right?
Every single time. Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's always interesting when I need to trust this, but everything in your mind is going, there's no reason to actually trust this thing that's
Right.
happening right now. But then when you take that chance, when you take that leap of trust into it, it can be the most beautiful experience, even
Mm-hmm.
better than anything your mind could have ever come up with.
Absolutely. And for someone, okay, so if someone is watching this right now and they've been like, yeah, that sounds great in theory, but like my mind races, I say to you that, that is when you need to start practices like journaling, meditating, finding ways to quiet the mind and let things flow out of you so that your mind does not control you, right? Like it can be so easy for me to sit here and say, I'm trusting in my intuition. But if you're someone who lives up in your mind, if you're someone who's constantly questioning and running around your mind and stuff, that is when you do need to build a connection with spirit, build a connection with self, learn how to quiet your mind, do breath work, do meditation, do journaling, exercise, find a space in which you can quiet your mind and go to that space daily, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's key.
It so is. And I do believe it is a challenge for a lot of people to
Mm-hmm.
quiet the mind. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, just talking to a girlfriend a few weeks ago, she had said to me, well, I would love to meditate, but I can't get my mind to shut up. And I was
Right.
like, well, that's the reason to
That's the reason to
meditate.
meditate. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's important to remember too, though, that like if you want to get to that space to quiet your mind, like you don't have to meditate. You don't have to do yoga. Like my dad, for instance, is, he's not into meditation. He's not into yoga. That's not who he is, but he has been working out daily since he was like a teenager. And for him, I remember him saying years ago, like, if I don't work out, I'd go crazy. That is his space where he turns off his mind, he tunes into his body, and he just lets his energy flow. And he's able to release whatever it is he needs to release in that space of working out. So you don't have to learn how to meditate or journal or do yoga if you're looking to have that spiritual quietness within your mind. You just have to find a space in which you can get out of your mind. That's not a distraction. Okay. So I'm not talking about TV or anything like that. A space where you can get out of your mind and drop into your breath and just let your mind be quiet for a little while.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And just to offer out a few different examples, I guess, to people, painting is another
Mm-hmm.
one that
Mm-hmm.
I can lose myself in painting for a very long time, or even just kind of listening to music. I have a
Mm-hmm.
specific playlist that allows me to access my emotions whenever I need
Yes.
to. So,
Yes. And if you're unsure of where to start, think of what activities you loved doing when you were a child. Going back to tapping into inner child, what kind of stuff made you happy as a child? And try doing one of those activities and see what comes through.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I love that example with your dad as well about working out, because it's the easiest way to clear your mind is a good workout, or even just going for a walk. A walk around
Mm-hmm.
the block can be so beneficial for people.
Yes, exactly. It's important to remember that you don't have to look like a spiritual guru sitting on a feathered pillow to quiet your mind. Like, there's so many different avenues. And I love that the spiritual community is kind of moving away from that image of like the thin white woman sitting on a pillow going, like, we're moving away from that. There's lots of avenues to tap into this. You just got to find which one's right for you.
Absolutely. And I think it takes the fear away from it as well.
Mm-hmm.
That I have to be this perfect image of what it's supposed to look like, rather than, I guess, again, going back into that trust of what is it, how does this look for me?
Yes.
Not how does this look in the ideal community of what this is supposed to look like, but rather, how does this look for me?
Exactly. Yeah. The more you spend time asking questions about yourself and like instead of questions about your surroundings, the more you'll learn what works for you and the easier it'll be to tap into that trust. You know, it's time to make you the focus, right?
Exactly.
Which is, it's hard for a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to be the focus, especially if you're holding on to secrets, trauma, so on and so forth, right? It's hard to look at ourselves fully.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I know too that you have started doing tarot parties. Can you tell me a little bit more about that as well?
Yeah, so I've just started offering the option for tarot parties. I do offer individual tarot readings, but the tarot parties are something I'm really excited about because I find that the basis of a lot of work that I do is this, like, you know, okay, let's sit down, let's get into the depths of your emotions, let's meet your trauma, let's blah, 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 blah. But the tarot readings and the tarot parties specifically are a really fun and exciting way to still connect with spirit and connect with self and learn a little bit about yourself without having to go too deep into the waters of your depths, right? So the tarot parties I'm taking bookings right now for spring and summer of 2021. And they're just meant for small gatherings, especially given COVID times, where I come to you, and they're for groups of anywhere from 4 to 10 people. And then each person gets, you know, a 15 to 30 minute individual tarot reading, depending on how many people are participating. And I'll just take you into a separate space. We'll do a tarot reading, and then the next person. And then we have a chance to sit down after, kind of chat about it, and then pull a card. I like to pull a card for the group as well. Just like a little mantra card. So the tarot parties are just a really fun way, like if you're having a dinner party or barbecue, like a little fun, exciting activity to add to that as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really
awesome.
awesome.
I'm really excited about them.
And it's great to bring people together, but also to kind of grow them all together as well, right?
Yes, I have it in as an option. It's an optional thing that you can do of like, okay, everyone's done their tarot reading. Like, how about we all get together, take in 3 deep breaths, and then I'll pull a card for you guys as a group, whether it's a family, whether it's a group of friends, whether it's coworkers. Like, let's pull a card as a group that you can all then connect on, you know, after I'm gone.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And do you find that more people would be interested in the tarot readings because they are a little bit more fun and a little bit more upbeat? Or do you find more people are interested in doing that deeper work?
No, deeper work is not something I have much more interest from folks in the tarot readings than I do in the spirit work, which makes sense. You know, it takes a lot to say, okay, I'm going all in. Like, people do not do spirit work. People do not go to therapy unless they have a reason to. Whereas the tarot reading is like a fun, exciting thing. And it's like, oh, I've always heard about that. Like, yeah, I want to know what the cards have in store for me. So I find that there is a lot more interest in the tarot readings, but I think it almost feels like I'm fooling people because it's like, you're still connecting to spirit. You're still getting those messages. It's just from a different avenue, but you know, whatever works for you is great, you know?
Yeah. 100%. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And so with the tarot parties, I know you said you travel to people. Is there kind of a space of distance that you're willing to travel, or is it just kind of all over?
So I'm based in Guelph. So for if someone wants to book within Guelph, there is no travel fee. I'll just come to you. And then kind of the surrounding area, right? So Kitchener, Cambridge, Elora, Fergus, all of those places. There may be a small travel fee depending on where you are. I haven't gotten any interest as far as Toronto yet. But, you know, I mean, I'm open depending on the person and what they're looking for. So just basically right now, Guelph and the surrounding area, especially with the way that COVID is and stuff. Also, outdoor gatherings are preferred. But I know that the weather's still a little chilly, so we'll have to see.
Yeah. And then is this something that you would offer over like a video call as well, or is that kind of?
Yeah, I haven't yet with the tarot parties. The tarot parties are a new offering. They're the newest thing I'm offering. So my individual tarot readings, actually I have, you know, if someone's interested, they book it online with me and I have them fill out a form, and then I do it privately because I go into a deep meditative space and I call on guides, I call on ancestors, I talk to their guides and ancestors, and I find that I have the best results through doing that. So those ones are done kind of privately, and then I send all the results to the person. So the tarot parties are a bit more of a fun, you know, I obviously wouldn't go into as deep of a meditative state on those. So I haven't considered offering it online as a tarot party, but if that is something that interests someone, like, let's do it. I'm totally open to that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And this wasn't even something that we discussed beforehand, but we do have quite a few viewers on here. Would you like to pull a card for everybody that's on here right now?
Sure.
Okay.
Should we do, I'm just wondering if we should do a mantra card or if we should do, I'm going to pull a card from the deck that I use to give you all a little taste if anyone's interested in booking a tarot reading. The deck that I use is the Animal Spirit deck by the Wild Unknown. I use this deck because I find even for folks who are brand new to connecting with spirit or doing tarot, everybody can connect to animals. Who doesn't love animals? Like, everybody, you know, has an animal that they love or that they identify with. So I use this deck because I find it's very easily accessible and it's also a lot of fun. So
Awesome.
I will pull a card for everybody. So for anyone who's watching, I will invite you to find a comfortable seat, although I'm sure you're probably already in one. And let's take a second here and close our eyes and just place our hands over our hearts. And taking a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Letting any emotions that arise just simply float by without going too deep into them. Take in another deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. If you have a specific question or something you've been wondering about in your life, I ask you to ask it now. You can say it in your head or say it out loud. And take in one more deep breath in and out. And then we can open our eyes. Okay. So as I was doing that, I was shuffling the deck and a card just flipped up, which tells me that that's the card it's supposed to be. So this is Crocodile. All right, where are we? There we go. So this deck is cool because it has the illustration of the animal, and then it also has the element that it's associated with. So this deck has all 4 elements and then spirit cards as well as the 5th element. So this is the water element, right? Which is flow, right? In order for things to grow, we have to let them flow down a river. I live my life by the mantra of, if I have to swim upstream, I'm not doing it. Like, if it doesn't flow, you know, I'm not doing it. So crocodile. So let's just take a second here. And what does crocodile make you think? Do you associate anything with crocodile or the picture itself? Right? So this crocodile looks a little scary, but I mean, they all kind of do. That doesn't mean that they don't hold good wisdom and messages. This one looks like he's sitting in the rain. So crocodile is about resting, submerging, collecting your energy, and cooling off. Okay, so when a card like this arises, I would say that it's probably time to pause, put down whatever it is you've been carrying, stop pushing so hard for whatever it is you're trying to manifest, and allow yourself some space to cool down. All right, so crocodiles are really great at just, you know, submerging themselves in the cool water and just pausing and waiting, right? They will wait for hours until what they want comes along, okay? So crocodile here is a message that it is time to just, you know, pause, put it all down and leave some space for you, the universe, to manifest. I think that it is so easy for us to try and incorporate ourselves so much into everything that we're doing that we forget that there is a higher power that is trying to manifest on our behalf as well. And when we're holding the reins so tightly, there's no space for the universe to manifest. So crocodile is a reminder to kind of calm down, breathe, pause, trust that the universe is here. And when you're able to let go a little bit and submerge in the cool and just relax, that the universe can step in and manifest on your behalf.
Beautiful.
Okay, yeah. So that's crocodile. And then after I do a reading, I always like to just take a moment to thank the animal spirit that came through. So I just want to take a moment here to thank the great crocodile spirit for coming through today with your wisdom and your guidance, For those of us that it resonated with, we are grateful and we thank you. Awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I love reading cards. I really do. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. You've got Wesley on here that goes, well, that makes sense, Christine. Thank you. So
perfect. Beautiful. I'm happy to hear that, Wesley.
Yes, everyone who needed to hear that was able to hear that. So thank you for that. Yeah. Now, one question I always ask all of the speakers on In the Spotlight is, if you could share one piece of wisdom for the world right now, what would you want the world to know?
I would, I think an important message to remember right now, especially during the times of COVID, is that, you know, you're not alone in your struggles. That, you know, we're all going through something, and that it is so important to reach out to the people, your loved ones. Okay, if you're in a space of struggling, if you're in a space of uncertainty, if you're in a space of feeling lost, remember these two things. A, there is always support for you in your family and your loved ones. If you do not have family and loved ones, there are resources available. Please feel free to contact me. I have a great list compiled of local resources. And B, just remember to trust in yourself and trust in your path. And I know that that can seem so easy for me to say when I'm not in a space of struggling, but just remember that there is love and there is space for you. And if you can just find some space to breathe and to remember that there is a part inside of you that will always be okay, and to try and tap into that part of you, maybe you can find a bit of peace and solace in there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Christine.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us here tonight. If anyone is wanting to connect with Christine, you can reach her on her Instagram or her Facebook. Both of them are under the Treehouse Holistic Holistic Collective. And your website as well is Treehouse Holistic.
Yes, so the website is Treehouse Holistic Collective, and so is Facebook, and then Instagram is Treehouse Holistic.
Okay. Okay. So though I've got those right here, so I'm just gonna make sure that we get those on there for everybody to be able to see. And Christine is booking for spiritual coaching. She's booking for tarot reading. She's booking for energy healing, and also the tarot parties. If anybody's interested in those as well, just reach out to Christine and connect with her. I'm just getting that into the comments there. Perfect. So thank you so much for joining us, Christine. And I hope to see everyone back here again next Tuesday night. We have Lisa Graham joining us to talk about the divine feminine. So have a great night, everybody. And thank you, Christine.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.